Going to help people's gut, you should understand this. They are toxic fragments on the outer membrane of gram-negative bacteria. They are one of the most potent activators of the innate immune system. We just brought up a new term. Some of you may have heard of gram-negative bacteria. Wait, what is that? You have two types of gram bacteria, positive and negative. When they look at them under a microscope, the stain is different, the color is different, the morphology is different. They have different functions and structures. I just want you to be familiar with the term number one. We go to have some common examples. Some of you may be familiar with streptococci, listeria, food, waterborne pathogens. On the right, gram-negative, Escherichia coli, Helicobacter, the most common stomach bacterial overgrowth in the world. Okay, familiar? Why does this matter? Because each positive or negative, well, they have certain structural differences that influence how you would respond. For example, gram-positive, thick peptoglycan wall, no outer membrane. Gram-negative, thin peptoglycan wall, but the outer membrane has a protective layer on it, often made up partly of lipopolysaccharides. So gram-negative bacteria can be particularly susceptible to certain types of treatment, antibiotics, antimicrobials. So you do a stool test, let's say, and certain bacteria come up. Knowing whether it's gram-negative or gram-positive, which is just a quick search away, and you can look at the stool test, it'll show you what susceptibility each bacteria, each pathogenic bacteria has. So on a stool test, you'll see, if anyone wants to put any in the chat as an example, you might see something being susceptible to colloidal silver or berberine or grapeseed. That's dependent on its structure, gram-positive or gram-negative. So knowing, this is from a study, knowing whether the bacterium is gram-positive, gram-negative informs a physician about the bacterium potential's resistance mechanisms, types of toxins it might release, and which antibiotics will be most effective. In your case, or in your client's case, antibiotics and or antimicrobials. Where are we in space? I'd like to show you a structure. This is the structure of a lipopolysaccharide. Now, it's not the big alien-looking worm guy. That's the entire gram-negative bacteria. What we're talking about with a lipopolysaccharide is the outer membrane. You see that little purple outer membrane? He's protecting it. Tampon guy. That's right. Another visual diagram. Now we're deeper in the actual gram bacteria. The little green alien tentacle guys, lipopolysaccharides. When they're released, that bacteria, we break that open and it's released, can trigger large immune responses. For me, 5 to 10 bowel movements a day, lethargy, apathy, psychologically, I was gone. I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't have a professional at the time who told me and managed my expectations and treatment plan. Don't do that. When these bacteria die, either naturally or due to antimicrobial treatment, they release lipopolysaccharides into the gut lumen. What happens then? Or what happens?
It can cause a pretty big inflammation response in the body. In your gut, this can look like bloating, nausea, really intense cramping, needing to run to the bathroom, diarrhea as well. And then away from the gut, in the rest of your body, it can look like really bad fatigue, heaviness, brain fog, anxiety can even be one of them. Yeah, headaches, flu-like symptoms, like you feel like, oh, am I coming down with something? I've experienced a lot of like psychological symptoms, like a lot of anxiety, just like waves of panic. Like it's a toxin circulating, so it's going to not be a pleasant experience. What actually happens step by step when the bacteria die? It can be antibiotics or antimicrobials, herbal antimicrobials. The bacteria can release the LPS from the membrane, and then it enters the gut lumen, which is like the empty space, let's say, in your gut. And yeah, it's like the hole. If your bowel movements are good, then it can be carried out nicely and exit without many problems. If you're backed up, then it can be exposed to the rest of your body and circulate into your bloodstream. And then once it gets there, it can go everywhere else. So then it can cause all of these really nasty symptoms with your immune system, inflammation, and everything else. So we really need you, if you're going to do this, to protect your clients and keep them safe. We really need you to make sure that this is a non-negotiable thing that's like done before you even touch anything else.
Yep.
And these are the two ways that you can go with it if they're constipated or they're going regularly. So it can it's a spectrum, but it can be quite severe if you're not careful with it.
And I decided to make a diagram for you guys in how the endotoxins cross the gut barrier. I couldn't find anything from research, so I just decided to make my own. This is 95%, 90% scientifically accurate. Your gut, your colon, your large intestine is full of gram-negative bacteria. Those are in the blue, and then attached to them is the LPS, drawn in the yellow hexagons. It's very inflammatory. LPS is constantly being shed. It's normal. On the left state, consider normal bowel movements. On the right, the big poop, that's constipation happening. High concentration of LPS is pressed up against the luminal wall for a long time and eventually finds its way to cross into the middle panel, which is the epithelial barrier. And it has two main forms of transportation, the paracellular, which is between the actual epithelial wall itself. They open up, so the tight junctions, which are in the green, they open up. And this is particularly more prominent in people with gut issues, with intestinal permeability, which is a description of these tight junction proteins being more dysfunctional. They open up for too long and they don't close back up. A lot of food compounds the byproducts of food compounds can get through into the lamina propria and then the bloodstream. There's two forms that this LPS can be retained. And then the other one is transcellular, which is actually through the epithelial tissue. And that is, it's gone through the cell itself and is transported through dietary fat and taken up into the cell. And then in the lamina propria area, actually, should I make a note about it? It may be another mechanism to why high fat intake can be particularly insultative. It can be particularly problematic for people with gut issues. We may potentially drive some more of this because of the way the LPS is driven and transported through. So then we get into the lamina propria. That's where we're having more of this immune reaction. We're having macrophages, which are a big immune cell. And then we're having, remember that master inflammation switch, NF-kappa B activation, TNF-alpha, IL-6. These are just immune triggers that you should be aware of that then triggers, the output is inflammation, but underneath that are those inflammatory cytokines. And so then we are into the bloodstream itself, and those lipopolysaccharides are actually there in the bloodstream, we think, entering circulation. And that's when a localized gut problem can become systemic. Systemic means broadly throughout the whole body. And so when you introduce antimicrobials, when a client's taking antibiotics, you start killing that bacteria. Then if we're triggering a big surge of LPS secretion and they're constipated, those die-off symptoms can be severe. And this is the mechanism of how we suspect that to happen. So we want you to open the exit before you turn on the tap. The exit is your butthole, if that wasn't clear. Now, after the foundations of 4 to 8 weeks, we can proceed finally after 70 minutes to show you how important that was to phase 1, which we can move through pretty succinctly. If anybody has any questions, please put them in chat.